Synergy, Tubasex, all my government supporting organizations. A very, very heartfelt gratitude to all of you. Over the next 3 days, we will be running 8 very focused industry panel discussions, which will talk about driving the growth of or the consumption of stainless steel in high consumption sectors. We'll have 3 CEOs roundtables discussing inward areas for improvement within the sector or better collaboration within the industry, and addressing critical issues like policy, sustainability, talent development. But the kickoff begins now. We have an impressive exhibition with about 75 large companies representing the best of the products and services that they have to offer. I'm sure you'll all meet, interact, and benefit from the emerging opportunities. Let me introduce the panel to you first. My first speaker for the morning is Marcus Small. Marcus is the Managing Director of SMR GmbH. He's a mechanical engineer and economist by background, and he's one of the most sought-after consultants for the specialty steel producers in Europe, America, and Asia. Thank you, Marcus, for being able to make it here today. My next panelist is Tim Collins. Tim is the Secretary General of the World Stainless Organization. After completing his degree in metallurgy, Tim joined the British Steel in 1980s. Over his illustrious career, Tim has worked in technical supply chain operations roles in British Steel, Avesta, Outokumpu, etc. He took over the role of the Secretary General of World Stainless in 2019 and is now working on supporting the growth of the sector globally. Mr. Abhyuday Jindal is what I personally like to call the epitome of the incredible India. Young shoulders carrying a big responsibility. He's the Managing Director of Jindal Stainless, India's largest stainless steel producer, which is part of the $35 billion OP Jindal Group. Under his leadership, the people in the industry are witnessing change not only within the enterprise, but at the industry level also. My interactions with him, very limited though, I've seen that big picture where he feels that, Jindal Steel will only grow if the Indian industry grows and India grows. So thank you, Abhyuday, for being able to join us today. My partner in crime on this particular project, Rajamani Krishnamurthy, the president of ISDA, has been with the industry for 30 plus years, wearing various hats in corporate strategy, public affairs, strategic communications and policy work. He's currently wearing the hat of the president of ISDA. Ladies and gentlemen, one big round of applause for our chief guest for the day, Shri Nagendranath Sinha. The body of work that he has, I could probably go on talking for the next 1 hour, but I'll keep it very, very crisp because I know he's pressed for time. I'll just say Shri Sinha is the Secretary Ministry of Steel. He's a 1987 batch IAS officer from the Jharkhand cadre. He's worked across roles, across ministries, across layers, and brings in a very, very rich, very, very in-depth experience of making policy changes with a strategic impact with the horizons of 5, 10, 15 years. Fine. So while he's at the Ministry of Steel, I'm sure the stainless steel industry will benefit from his engagement and his interventions there. Thank you, Mr. Sinha, for being able to make it today. We're really indebted for the support, and it means a lot to us. I'll hand over the dais now to Marcus, and let's understand from Marcus how Marcus is seeing the global markets evolving, and how does India benefit from the global learnings. Over to you, Marcus.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Raju, and his team here for inviting me back. Actually, the first of these conferences I did in 1998. and I still see the same faces. You know, there are some friends who, you know, we're growing old together in this industry, and this was in Ahmedabad at that time. You know, it's always a great pleasure to be in India. For example, Abu Dhabi was not there, but his father was there, and I remember our dance there. I still have that pictures on my wall in the office. It was fantastic. So I'm looking forward to make also new friends here. And I must say, the only thing that is still the same here in India is it's always too hot in the conference rooms, you know. But anything else has changed. At that time, I think India was not even producing 1 million tons of stainless. Now we are at 4 million tons. So rapid development, and it's not getting slower. Is there any chance to get my presentation up here and a remote control so that I can control it? Because, I mean, I can speak also, but it's much easier if you see all these materials that I have prepared for you. Yeah. Okay, so, yes, that's great. Okay. Yeah, looks like it is there, a little bit in a strange format, but okay, you will recognize it. First, so they gave me 15 minutes because I'm only the opening act for the real important speakers who come after me, you know. So excuse me, I have to speak a little bit fast. Yeah? So fasten your seatbelts and focus. Yeah? My company is based in Austria, in the middle of the mountains. This is the view from my window there. My team of 20 people, what we are doing is we're trying to anticipate the future of the stainless industry. So it's all about the future, but therefore you need to understand the past very much, you know. What we are doing, last year we had a fantastic year, more than 3.5 million in sales euros, and it's very difficult to see, but these others there, I mean, when you look at regions, still Europe is our biggest market, but these 12% is India. Huh? So India is already more than 10% of our revenues, and I have the impression that this is even becoming more important for us. And then we are doing also conferences, and we are coming to that a little bit later. We have to proceed immediately to the status quo. Yeah? This is a little bit slow in reacting. Which direction should I go here? Yeah. All of this, and you get the material, don't worry. This is the stainless industry product by product, from all the long products on top to the flat products on the bottom. We had around 48 million tons finished products that have been produced and sold last year. But the most important thing is that all these products are having different structures in terms of, oh gosh, is the battery off or what? Yeah, now you can see it. So each product you can split into commodities, only the price counts there, value products where domestic producers usually get a premium, and high value products. And unfortunately, more than 50% of the total industry is commodities. So that means if you want to be successful there in these commodities, then you need to have your complete production system in place and trimmed for productivity, high yields and things like that. So you need to decide, do I want to be a racehorse, successful in commodities, or do I want to be a jumper? Yeah? And the jumper needs flexibility. There are other things more important. The risk is that some companies try to be successful everywhere, and this does no longer work. 20 years ago that was possible, now not. So take the example of Outokumpu, for example. They have the racehorse up in Finland, Tornio, and they have the jumper in Sweden with Avesta. Yeah? So you can have it in one company, but not in one plant. So this is what you need to do. Decide with all your investments. I just had a quick chat with somebody from the seamless industry here, and it is in seamless, for example, if you want to be a racehorse, lowest cost, you need a piercing mill. If you want to be a jumper for specialties, duplex, six moly, all these things, you need an extrusion press. Yeah? So these are the kind of decisions you need to do where you want to play. Now this is really difficult. This is the stainless steel crude steel production, yeah? And in 2022, we had 57 million tons. Everybody thought last year we will break the 60 million barrier. We did not. In fact, last year, actually, the stainless crude steel production globally went down by almost 4% because China, in a long time, the first time, went down last year and produced less. Lockdowns, weak market, things like that. Now, what's more important is 2023. This is our last forecast. We did it last week. We think that this year the stainless market will grow by, the crude steel production will grow by 1%, yeah? Which is not much at all. And you see the growth here for example, you know, a lot of regions are negative here, including India. India, the consumption is growing nicely, but the production will be more or less stagnant because of this practice of this company here, bringing slabs into the country and big volumes. So that means that is taking some growth away from the crude steel production here. But others, is somebody controlling that? Me or somebody else? You help me now. I tell you then, when next, okay? So, you know, Europe will, after 12% shrinkage last year, will shrink another 1.2% this year, and this has to do with the market. In India, it has not to do with the market, but the imports of slabs. And China will be the big growth engine here in terms of production with 6% this year. This is also because they are taking over some of the volumes who would have been produced in Indonesia, but you know, in Indonesia they had big problems at the beginning of the year with riots, sabotage, whatever. You know, it's not so easy to produce in these countries. Okay, next one. Yeah, these are the stainless steel producers, and you have one giant here, which is the Jingsan Group. Jingsan, you have to read on the right side here, almost 12 million tons. Everybody else is much smaller. And Baowu Tisco, who is number 2 now, you have to read on the left side. They are now 5.5 million tons in total. And important from an Indian standpoint is Jindal is now in the top 10. It's number 9 worldwide and continues to grow. Yeah? So this is, let's say, the only non-Chinese, non-European producer who is really on a world, global scale, a significant stainless producer. One thing that happened last year is that the LME becomes less and less relevant. As you can see, the LME still has an upward trend in the nickel price that they're reporting, and this is driven by the battery sector for e-cars and not by nickel used in stainless steel. The main reason is also that class 1 nickel that is traded on the LME is very unimportant for stainless steel. On the other side, what is important is nickel pig iron, and here you see the trend is going the other way. So that means the stainless industry lesser and lesser looks on the LME for price building. It is really the MPI price in Indonesia and China who is driving stainless steel prices. And this leads also to the fact that the way in Europe the alloy surcharge is calculated has to be changed or it will die. We had actually a negative base price in some months. So it is, there are some things going on. Key things are moving away. And the market is now made in China and no longer on the London Stock Exchange here, or the pricing. So let us quickly go to some market drivers and inhibitors. Click and click. Yes. That's the end-use structure. And you don't need to go into detail, but way more than 50% of stainless steel is used in consumer goods. Yeah? And consumer goods are, at the end of the day, bought by consumers. And at the moment, the high inflation we have in most of the markets worldwide are taking purchasing power away from the consumers, and the central banks fight with high interest rates, and this affects then the rest of the industry. This is why in 2023 we are expecting very slow growth also in the global consumption of stainless steel, and here you see all these major things. This structure is global, and I know that ISTA has regular reports about how that looks in India. In India it looks quite different, even more consumer goods focused than in the rest of the world. Now, this is the consumer confidence. That's the that's the indicator. Where are the consumers standing at the moment? Europe, heavy negative, because the 100% reading would be neutral, you know. So we are in Europe and also in America. Europe has improved a little bit in the last month, but it's still below the zero line. And then we look at China. That's the only region where the consumers have become very optimistic again. Yeah? So this is worldwide the only one. Now we look at the producers, and here the purchasing manager index is a good indicator always for what's coming in the next 3 to 6 months. And here you see we are negative in Europe. We are negative here in the United States. Only China is somewhat, you know, hopping around the zero line. So this indicates that until the end of the year, the industrial activity is shrinking in most of the world and not growing. So more or less from that perspective, and Germany was even further down. Yeah, that's fine. Germany was the last one here, and this is even further down. This was short term until the end. For the long term, our forecast, and we are forecasting almost 80 product segments of stainless steel, you know, the key picture is this. Average growth 3.4% between now and 2030, and the automotive industry, transport, this is negative even, driven by the e-cars. An exhaust system is 30 kilos today, and an e-car doesn't need an exhaust system. Of course, that's not going overnight, but we feel it already that the market has reached a peak already in 2019, and since then, this exhaust market is shrinking. And you have to say it, and I know Tim is very active on that also, to develop products in stainless steel for e-cars, also for battery cars, with so far limited success, I must say. But maybe he can say something more optimistic here, because the battery casings that I've seen so far are all aluminum, and there are some battery evacuation tubes. They are stainless steel, for example, and so on. But overall, we are estimating that instead of 40 kilos of stainless steel, probably we have in an e-car today 10 kilos. But it is the task to bring that up, you know, because automotive will remain an important field. The other thing is then, here, building and construction is a driver. That's driving over the average here, the stainless consumption. And here I see enormous chances to replace aluminum, for example, yeah? But also some coated carbon steels based on carbon dioxide footprint. I'll show you that later. And then the fastest growth we see in the energy and petrochemical industry with the build-up of the global hydrogen supply chain, which from the production to the transportation to storage and use, there is stainless steel all over in conjunction with the hydrogen supply chain. And this will drive. So, CO2, saving the world or destroying the European industry? That's the question I have here. And in the meantime, next please. You know this lady, Greta Thunberg, Swedish young lady. When I heard the first time about her, I thought, Jesus Christ, please stay away from our industry. Go to school and don't protest. But she has changed Europe, at least, as nobody else before. And with her, you know, we know what is scope 1, what is scope 2, and what is scope 3 emissions. And the problem that the stainless industry has, if it's producing from scrap, is not scope 1 and scope 2. It is scope 3. It's the raw materials that we need, the ferroalloys, etc. You know, this is the biggest, so to speak, Achilles heel of the stainless industry as it is today. This is a snapshot of various materials, competing materials, and their CO2 footprint. Carbon steel are the first two. If you produce carbon steel on a blast furnace, you're relatively high. If you produce this in an electro arc furnace, you have the lowest possible CO2 footprint, as you can see, way below 1 ton per ton. But this is carbon steel. Now the next columns here are for stainless. And the first is China, the second is Indonesia, and then the other two are Europeans, ferritic and austenitic. And you see, if you produce from MPI, you know, in China, then it's scope 3, you are more than 10 tons per ton. In Indonesia, it's the same, only the scope 3 becomes scope 1 there. And then in Europe, if you use 80% or more scrap, you know, you are plus minus 2 tons per ton. And this is very important for the future. And the next thing, and this probably is a positive factor for stainless, the industry, when you look at aluminum, and the maximum scrap ratios that they are doing for the industry is 50%, is we are way better than aluminum here. And once the CO2 gets a price, yeah, and it has to be paid, the gap, then we will really, in many applications, be able to replace aluminum as a competitor. On the other side, this is the cost structure worldwide. And you see, the lowest is Indonesia. Yeah? They're having their own nickel. Their nickel costs are 10,000. Yeah? So unless the LME or whatever comes down to 10,000, which I don't hope, yeah? You know, nobody can compete with stainless steel from Indonesia today. Yeah? And the Europeans here have become very uncompetitive, as you see. We used to be always between China, you know, India and the rest of the world. So the Europeans were the most competitive producers. And this is where we stand here at the moment due to that decarbonization, which is adding so much costs on our mills here. It's a fact, and the mills cannot change it. So we have to prevent the erosion of the industry. And the brilliant idea was, and I don't know what Tim's opinion is about that, but I give you mine, and I can CBAM. By the way, who knows what CBAM is? Please raise the hand. It's still a minority. That's interesting, okay. Because everybody who's exporting to Europe will have to fall in this regulation. The carbon border adjustment mechanism should create a level play field between, it's mostly, say, very clear against China, yeah? China and Indonesia. Yeah? It should create a level play field between these Europeans who are using scrap and pay a lot for decarbonization and this high carbon stainless steel coming in. And the thing is, it starts already, and this is it. In October this year, everybody who's exporting stainless steel to Europe has to have the number of scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 in their stainless products. The importers who buy from you, and I know India is very focused on the European market, they will ask you, and you have to provide them something meaningful that is accepted by Brussels, by the European Commission. If not, then they will estimate you. And you know that from dumping cases, estimates are usually not in the favor of the importer. Huh? So you have to make sure that you have these numbers in order. I know Jindal has it, yeah? But there are so many others here which probably not. So from October on, you have to report, and you have 2 years, only reporting, no consequences. But from 2026 on, money has to be paid, and what they do is they look at the CO2 price, which is at the moment 90 euros per ton, and it will be higher in 2 years, you can be sure, and they look at the gap of your products versus the average European, and the rest you have to pay, and I tell you, that could easily be $1,000 or 1,000 euros per ton, you know, call it CO2 tax, yeah? That has to be paid then. Now this would be a brilliant idea to more or less protect the European industry. But as it looks at the moment, it's an administrative monster, and it could actually be the destroyer of the European industry, because the people in Brussels have not understood that they need that not only for the coils and the sheet and the plate and the bar, they need it also for the products that are made out of that. And at the moment, they show no intention, and probably Tim, you know more about it, no intention to include finished products there. And that way, they will just accelerate the deindustrialization of Europe. Because if you are producing heat exchangers, sinks, whatever, I'm like, okay, then I go out of the EU, yeah, and produce it there, put it in a container, and ship it duty-free into Europe. Huh? So sometimes I do not understand what these administrative people there, you know, how much do they understand of a supply chain or a whole business or so. So I really hope, and this is on your desk, Tim, here, to turn them around, because otherwise it's better not to do that at all, because we cannot save the world anyhow with our decarbonization, yeah? So, good, that is that. So at the moment, for stainless outside India, I gave you the global perspective. We are seeing mostly black swans in the pond. Yeah? A lot of things that give us headwind. Yeah? But some, you know, positive factors are also for this year. And it is that India, first of all, is easily outgrowing the rest of the market. We are estimating market demand growth of almost 6% this year in India, compared to globally less than 3%. That is definitely positive. Then inflation is falling as we speak, and this could bring back consumer confidence, as we have seen in Germany already, for example. The Ukraine war ends faster than expected. The decision has to be made in Washington. This is the only place where that is decided, how long that goes on. And energy prices normalize, meaning that, for example, we in Europe become more competitive again. And then next one here. Destocking. Yeah? We have, all over the world, we have destocking at the moment. And the mills feel that, because the order books have gotten substantially thinner. Stocks were way too high at the beginning of this year, even in China. But this destocking is coming to an end in the third quarter, probably, beginning of the fourth quarter, meaning that restocking will create an additional demand towards the end of the year. And last but not least, stainless is a lot more competitive now. Prices have virtually halved. I mean, where we were 1.5 years ago, that was unrealistically high, and stainless priced itself out of the market. But this is over. We are competitive again. And I want to show you a new application that I see that could be a major driver. We are trying to decarbonize heating and cooling worldwide, yeah? Getting away from oil and gas. And one solution is here the heat pump. Yeah? And these heat pumps that you have, there are various systems. You have between 2 and 3 heat exchangers, as you can see them. Here is one from Alfa Laval, which also has a plant in India here. And then the heat exchanger, you know, with the shell. Some of the shells are even in 316 stainless steel. So there's a lot of stainless steel in such a heat pump. And I just read it to you. We're expecting 18 million units. So we had 6 million produced last year globally, 18 million by 2030. About 20 kilos of stainless go into one heat pump. That makes easily conservative 300,000 tons additional stainless steel demand only in this application by 2030. So these are these examples why stainless will always grow. Yeah? This is it. Please take your time, come to Zurich, come to Switzerland, to our stainless steel conference there for 3 days. Let's say the who is who of the industry, from raw materials to mills, to distributors, fabricators, end users, they will meet there. We have the biggest consumers there, the 2 biggest stainless consumers. We have all of the European mills there, some overseas mills, even from North America, hopefully also from India, you know, so it's really, it will be the commercial event. I know there are events like Maastricht and so on. They are mostly technical, and if you want to sell tubes and duplex, you go to Maastricht. But if you want a complete overview from the top people, CEOs of the stainless industry, what they expect for the next years, you know, then Zurich is the place. We have already 270 people registered, and we have, I think, 40 days to go or something like that, mid of September. Then, if you're more interested in North America, Nashville, 1.5 days, and here it is stainless is the main, but also some nickel alloys. And I see an increasing number, like I've been in with Ratnamani 2 days ago in Ahmedabad, an increasing number of Indians are making the move from stainless steel up to nickel alloys, which is a good thing. Different business cycle, high value segments. This is why it was right when Acerinox bought VDM, for example. So I think that is a good strategy, that let's see, at least the quality producers should consider, yeah? Also to include some nickel, and these are discussed additional to stainless steel here in Nashville in the mid of October. And for all of you who do not like to travel, one more, come on, yeah, join the Stainless Steel Club. Everything we know about stainless is in there. Supply, demand, prices, costs, everything. And we update that every day, also with news. And there is a subscription level for all budgets. So it is for distributors up to the major mills and raw material people. Just go to the internet and check out the Stainless Steel Club. And with this, and I know it was 1 minute over 15 minutes probably, you know, but you were very calm there. With this, I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. That was really enlightening. Had somebody told me that this would be such a precious 15 minutes, I would have carried a notepad and probably earned my PhD in steel tomorrow. It was a lot of information. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make a slight change in the schedule. After Marcus had wanted Tim to bring in another global perspective, followed up with a perspective from Abhiday, how the Indian industry is responding. But Shri Sinha has to leave for a meeting. I'm going to make a slight change and hand over the dais to Shri Sinha. Sir, you're in the captain's chair. Marcus just said that, you know, hydrogen is going to be a game changer, infrastructure is going to be a game changer, consumer markets are going to be a game changer, and I think India is poised well to leverage all three of these. How are you seeing it from the cockpit? How are you planning to take the industry to the next level? Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues on the dais who have given us a brilliant perspective of the sector, and I don't think we can, I can in any way have the depth of what Marcus has provided. But let me try to give perspective from the side of the ministry. So first of all, let me thank and also congratulate ISDA, who has organized this Made in India Stainless Steel Expo. And this is a 3-day event and has large number of semi-events as well as a lot of exhibitors. I was told about 80 or so. Catering to different sectors and also I was told that many user associations and industries are also participating. There are 3 CEO roundtables. So I think it's a very comprehensive kind of conference which will bring everyone together and would lead to a lot of exchange of information on this sector, the possibilities, the potential, the issues, and how do, as industry together, they could resolve and probably make a better case for themselves. There are factors which everyone knows. The fact that the stainless steel industry in India is growing at a fast clip as compared to world over is a fact which needs celebration. And I think the way the economy is growing, the way there is more emphasis on infrastructure development, both from the government side, and it has, for last few years, it has been an infrastructure-led growth, but we see a lot of private sector companies also joining development of infrastructure and facilities, and we see a lot of potential for growth of the stainless steel in times to come. we currently stand at about 2.8 kgs or so per capita, and going forward, we will enhance it further. So in terms of demand, as the ISDA believes and has done computations, we should be reaching about 6.8 million tons capacity by 2030, and by 2047, at the on completion of 100 years of Indian independence, we should be standing somewhere at around 20 million tons of capacity. It's also a time to celebrate when Jindal Stainless stands at 9th in terms of volume of production being done worldwide. So we are an important industry, and this industry is going to grow further. What is more important to understand, as was mentioned by Marcus, is that going forward, this industry is going to get a greater share of different applications, as well as garner new applications in terms of the newer kind of applications. For example, green hydrogen he mentioned, he also mentioned about heat exchangers, etc. So these are the, and we all are aware that as we go forward, the solar energy applications are going to come, etc. So a large number of new sector applications are going to come. But we also need to recognize the fact that as we go forward, the share of the applications coming from the architecture, building, construction, automotive, railways, transport, process industries are also going to increase further, considering the fact that these industries didn't have as much prominent a role as others and in other countries in the past. So these applications are going to take center stage, and as per the ISDA's own projections in this regard, we find, we are told that in times to come, the proportion of the architecture, building, construction is going to go up from 19% to 22%. In terms of consumer goods, the proportions as compared to developed world and maybe Europe going to come down from 44 to 40%, so not as much as others, and process 27% or so by 2030. But let's also keep in mind that these numbers are at a higher base. So these numbers are, let's say, when you are taking them with reference to the production at that point in time. A usual question is, what is it that the government is doing in this regard? One is that there were many sectors and many applications in which the PLI 1, Production Linked Incentive Scheme 1, invited applications. Our understanding is that the stainless steel sector didn't participate as enthusiastically as others have. But I hope when we formulate and our proposal gains approval of the government as second tranche of the production linked incentive schemes, we should see a greater participation of the stainless steel manufacturers, processors, etc. We have also included stainless steel grades which were not part of the Indian standards in those BIS standards. For example, I'm told that low nickel grades have been validated and included in the stainless steel grade. So this is one area where we are working with the industry to ensure that the quality of the stainless steel products are as good as they could be, and substandards products do not flood and crowd out the genuine good quality producers. So that is one area which the Indian government is clearly focused, and we will be working towards them. There is a steel scrap recycling policy, and in terms of the stainless steel being recyclable, and this industry depending to a very large extent on the scrap recycling route, it's a policy which is facilitating this. But let's also be cognizant of the fact that the stainless steel applications in this country is not of that vintage, and therefore the scrap can only come from outside to a very large extent. And to the extent that there is scrap, that restrictions on the scrap trade, it's going to affect availability, and we have to work a way around towards availability of scrap for the manufacturing and melting of the stainless by our stainless steel producers. Indian government has also included life cycle assessment approach in its procurements. Our procurements are guided by a document called General Financial Rules, which were taken out in 2017, and in one of its rules, it provides for life cycle cost assessment. But having the provision and its applications are two different things, and we shall be working with the CPWD, the state PWDs and the NBCCs towards this, so that they also include life cycle cost assessment approach into their own production. I did ask my colleagues to do some research in this regard, and he told me that if the stainless steel price is about 3.3 times or less of the mild carbon steel, then the structures, particularly the bridges built out of that, are life cycle cost-wise cheaper and more and competitive as compared to the structures built out of the mild carbon steel. So I think the idea of mentioning this point was to tell the industry that you need to develop linkages with the academia, economists, to bring out these facets in different areas of the industry, different areas of applications. And I was quite happy to learn when prior to this session, Abhyuday told me that even the poultry producers are looking at using stainless steel for their own equipments and structures, etc. So the idea being that you need to reach out to different industries, users, and tell them how it is safer, sustainable, environment friendly, beneficial for their application, and the fact that the implants made out of the stainless steel could be used within the body is itself a kind of a huge statement about the safety of the stainless steel. I would also like to mention to the audience here, the esteemed audience here, that Ministry of Road Transport and Highways have prescribed that within 15 kilometers of the sea coast or creek, the use of stainless steel for the purposes of reinforcement has been made mandatory in 2021. We also need to study these things further. Uh, in terms of the duties, the government has also been taking a very pragmatic approach. We have a the basic custom duty on the scraps, about 2.5% on the ferronickel, and in terms of flats that come to us is about 7.5%, but that is to ensure and encourage more production in the country. We have centers of excellence established in 4 IITs, Chennai, Mumbai, BHU at Varanasi, and Kharagpur. But I think going forward, we should look at a center of excellence which is exclusively devoted towards the stainless steel sector applications and its processing, etc. Because when you have a department or center of excellence which are looking at steel, there are many other areas which also command its attention. But for this sector, we need more of academia, industry linkage, more of knowledge generation about its potential, its environment friendliness, its sustainability, and as more and more you reach out to the users, to the governments, the extent of application of the stainless steel would certainly grow. There is one more area which I wish to emphasize, and this is on knowledge that the ISDA, the Jindal Stainless have been reaching out to the users as well as the skill development institutions and academic institutions. I wish to also request them that architectural institutions be also be included in your outreach, because it is the architects who will play a major role in users turning to the more and more usage of the stainless steel, not only in area of plumbing, but also in terms of decorative and other applications in the construction of houses and other structures. One area which I certainly need to commend the Indian industry is the area of the their involvement in the construction of the metro coaches. I've been told that the quality of Indian metro coaches that you see in Delhi and in many other places is world class, and their class has enabled new markets to the Indian manufacturers, and Australia and many other countries are now looking towards Indian industry for their own application in this area. I could go on and on, but the fact remains that the Ministry of Steel is a ministry which works hand in hand with the Indian industry, and the stainless steel industry is a major part of the Indian steel industry, and we have been reaching out, and we will continue to reach out and be responsive to your concerns and needs to the extent this can be done within the government framework. So consider us as your friends, and we will work together to ensure that this industry grows in future. The users are sensitized towards the benefits that the industries and the applications could themselves derive from more and more use of stainless steel. We should and we would work together in the areas of skill development and the research areas and the application areas to demonstrate them. And lastly, I would like to conclude that the Government of India is also working with the industry for a branding initiative. So Made in India brand by the Indian manufacturers is something we are working towards, and soon we should be able to conclude the developmental phase. And once that happens, then even now you are assured of the quality from the Indian manufacturers, but the company's label and the Indian Made in India label taken together would be a benchmark for quality of the stainless steel products. So wish you best of luck, and hopefully by the end of this conference we will have a much greater depth of understanding, greater cohesion among the stainless steel sector, and a more forward-looking agenda for the growth of the nation and development of industry as a strategy to move forward the growth of the Indian developmental activities. So thank you again for inviting me, and wish you best of luck.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your encouraging words. It's very difficult summing up for all that he shared, but three quick takeaways. The first and the biggest one was he said that all the plans that you hear, the infrastructure spends, the railways modernization, everything is happening and the government is committed to it, which I think is a big support for the entire industry. The second thing which he said was that, you know, you're a new and niche sector. Which means कि अगर छोटे में इतना गजब कर रखा है तो बड़े होंगे तो क्या होगा. So all of you, a round of applause for yourselves, for the Indian stainless industry, that the impact that you're creating is getting noticed now. The third thing, which was the most critical, he said, we are available to help, just reach out to us. So I think that's what he's been, from what I as an outsider hear and see, he's been encouraging that, he's been supporting that. So I think he's said it in his own words today, that reach out to him and is happy to support. Thank you so much, sir. Yes. So we are, like I mentioned earlier, due to paucity of time, he has to leave. We are taking a small diversion to the plan. The session will continue like this. Shri Sinha has to leave. I'd request Abhiday to give him a small token just to remind him that he was here with us today. 3rd of August, he was a guest at the India Steel Expo. Vijayji from JSL team and Rohit from ISDA, sir will take you for a quick round to the exhibition and see you off to your vehicle. Thank you once again for being here with us today. It's a lot of encouragement for all the blood and sweat that the industry is putting in. Thank you for your time. So we will request lamp lighting if all of us can join in for 1 minute. Tim, Marcus, the traditional Indian lamp lighting for 1 minute, and then we'll come back on the stage. Yes, yes, sit down here.
शुभं कुरुध्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुध्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते शुभं कुरुध्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः दीपज्योतिर्परब्रह्म दीपज्योतिर्जनार्दनः दीपज्योतिर्परब्रह्म दीपज्योतिर्जनार्दनः दीपो हरतु मे पापम् सन्ध्यादीपनमोऽस्तु ते शुभं कुरुध्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुध्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to make an announcement here. Unfortunately, we had the confirmation of Honorable Steel Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia ji, but he has a roster duty in the Parliament at the same time, so he can't leave the Parliament. That's why he's nominated Mr. Fagan Singh Kulaste, the Ministry of Steel, Minister of State Steel. He will be addressing us shortly virtually because he's not there in Delhi. So he will be addressing us shortly on this. And since there was a parliament session and secretary had to rush, the roundtable, this thing which we had planned with secretary is still on. That has been slightly shifted. We will brief you, the concerned person who have been participating on this. So please bear with us on this.
Thank you, Raja. So till we wait for Abhiday to come back and join, Marcus, I have a couple of questions for you. The first one is around. You spoke about green hydrogen and how it will drive stainless steel, and I'm a newborn aficionado of green hydrogen, layman to the energy world, but very intrigued. Back in Germany, you have pipelines which are ready to take hydrogen from day one. For a country like India, which is yet to start the supply chain, for the stainless steel industry, it's a huge opportunity. Right? There was a recent report which said that if India maps the green hydrogen journey well, we could be producing 5 Saudi Aramcos. 5 Saudi Aramcos in India, if we are able to map it well. Right? But the critical part is the supply chain, the pipelines, the storage, the distribution, and the stainless steel connectivity to it. How do you think the Indian industry needs to prepare to leverage that demand?
Well, hydrogen and stainless, that will become very important. And when you say green hydrogen, that is a distant future thing.
That's it.
At the moment, green hydrogen is peanuts. Yeah?
Yeah.
It's absolutely, so there will be gray, blue, and all other colors for a long time before green will be the major form. And it's all about cost. Yeah? And when one thing that you mentioned, the infrastructure, the pipelines, this is very important. You can, in most cases, use other gas pipelines also for hydrogen. First, people thought with the hydrogen embrittlement, this will not be the case. You have to build a new network. It's not true. But stainless steel is virtually not used in the pipelines. Don't get me wrong. The pipelines are carbon steel. Yeah? Stainless steel is used in the production of hydrogen, whether it is with an electrolyzer for green, and here you have a lot of stainless steel, heat exchanger, then also the so-called cold box, you know, where for the liquefaction of gas and so on. So here you have a lot of stainless and even nickel alloys in there. But the main process that's used today is the so-called SMR units, you know, which are, it's not my company, it's the same name, where you produce it from gas, actually, you know, and here you need stainless steel. Then for the transport, whether it is pipeline, the pipeline's not, but at the front end and back end of the pipeline, you have stainless steel. Then if you transport it by truck, you have stainless steel, and then where you store it, you have stainless. So you asked me about the strategy for India. India should do something like similar Rotterdam in Europe. Rotterdam will become the major receiving and departing hub because we are planning to import a lot of hydrogen from countries like Saudi Arabia, which is just building now the biggest electrolyzer in the world, but also Northern Africa, etc. Because in order to produce green hydrogen, you need green electricity. You don't have that in India yet. And you cannot build, I mean, there the sun shines all the time, in Saudi Arabia and things, and in the north we have the windmills. And hydrogen has the wonderful ability to buffer out, to store electricity, basically. Because when you have too much wind and sun, produce hydrogen, and on the consumption side, you have a stable consumption, and this can be transported, it can be also stored. Not easy, but it can. So this is why it will become such an important technology in the future. And I think what the government has to do is you have to create some clusters and some champions here, and the companies are already there. Like in Europe, it is Linde Gases, Praxair, Air Liquide, you know, these gas companies, which are also in India, but maybe you have some Indian gas companies as well. I'm not too familiar with that here. And they should be at the forefront of the development and everything. And it needs subsidies, that's clear. As unfortunately, the whole world, or the whole industry does no longer work, obviously, without any subsidies. And since there is a competition globally about that, the Indian government also has to make some money for that, you know. So, yep.
Okay, so now Marcus, connected to that, the way I see the markets around hydrogen, I'll drop the word green for the moment. Yes, you said it's a bit far in the distance. You know, Europe is looking at itself as a consumer, but doesn't want to become a producer. So the Rotterdam strategy of becoming a storage and distribution hub for hydrogen is partly because they are in a prime position with a good port infrastructure, and partly because Europe does not want to produce. They're saying that we are happy to import and consume, right? So that is one side of it. Yes, Tim?
Yeah, could I just add something to that? Because recently Germany have announced a hydrogen strategy. So they will begin to produce hydrogen in the not too distant future. So there are some changes occurring within Europe
Oh, okay.
But that's very sort of recent additions. So the whole, as you rightly said, is more focused on imports.
Yeah.
But just one other point to add to what Marcus said. The incoming water supply for electrolysis will need stainless steel as well, because the water needed has to be deionized first before the appropriate electrolytes are added to allow electrolysis to successfully occur. So that process demands stainless, and that's a significant amount of stainless. It's about 150 tons per gigawatt of electrolysis capacity. So just for the water containment on the incoming side. So that's significant when you multiply that up. And I think that's an important consideration too.
It is. So, and thank you for bringing that up, Tim. So what I was wanting to add to that was, so Europe wants to import because it doesn't want to produce as of now, but I'm glad if they're making the shift. Saudi.
I need to correct you.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't want to produce,
Yeah.
but the costs are too high in Europe
Right.
compared to North Africa or Middle East. We want to, but at the end of the day, these things, either you subsidize them forever,
Yeah.
which cannot be the tar, or the lowest cost producer will win the race, you know, so that's it.
Now, you mentioned Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia wants to produce hydrogen not to consume, but to offset its oil carbon. Fine. Now, you come to India. India is something which is wanting to go on the energy resilience path. That, you know, I want to cut down my oil import bills. Can I produce hydrogen? I cannot produce oil, but can I produce hydrogen? Fine. So the economic situation here around hydrogen would be very different from. I personally see a lot of opportunity in storage and smaller size distribution coming up for my friends here in the room. Have you seen any similar model in any other geography? That was my actual question. But anybody who's producing smaller pockets, you mentioned zones, so the government has laid out a strategy. There are 10 clusters being developed so that there's an equitable distribution.
In Germany, primarily on the eastern side of Germany, there's a project called the HYPOS project, which is developing the storage and distribution for hydrogen for industries that will use hydrogen. And in their early assessment, 50% of the need will be for small users. So the storage and distribution will most likely move to liquid hydrogen rather than low pressure or high pressure gas transport of hydrogen. And I think that model is worth following because it's a very interesting sort of split between the large scale consumers of hydrogen and the much smaller scale, which are currently suggested to be about 50% of the total demand.
Yeah. So I think it's a similar model that we're following here.
Yes.
A big chunk is again coming from the traditional offset sectors like fertilizer, hydrocarbon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Could I, excuse me, could I just add something on hydrogen production?
Yes, please.
Though, I recently joined a webinar on a technology, an electrolysis technology called ETAC, E-T-A-C, which is being developed in Israel at the moment. And this is a two-stage electrolysis of water with no membrane, unlike the polymer electrolytic membrane system. And the early outcomes of this is that it is 30% cheaper in terms of capex and about 35% cheaper in terms of the cost of producing green hydrogen. And the first plant is now being built to be running from 2024. This is an interesting technology to follow because it produces hydrogen in stage 1 and then switches the electrolyte in the water and produces oxygen in stage 2. And these things are built as cells so that you can continuously produce both gases. And it's a really interesting approach because from an energy efficiency, it takes traditional electrolysis of around 75–80% energy efficiency up to 97%.
Oh, okay.
So this is worth following and it's really interesting.
So I think the space will see a lot of engineering because I saw something with Masdar in Abu Dhabi, so that they're capturing the carbon dioxide of this room via the AC duct, converting it to methane, and then pulling out hydrogen again out of that. So, okay, so I'm just told that the minister is joining us, is taking another 10 to 15 minutes. So we'll continue with that original steel discussion. Over to you, Tim. Help give us some insights into what is happening in the rest of Europe and the world, how you see the world stainless perspective, what are the learnings that India can take from that, what is India doing right, what needs to be fine-tuned. Fine, I'll hand over the stage to you, and if the minister comes in between, we might
Just
request
interrupt
you.
it, yeah. I'll do my presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Can I use this microphone? Is my presentation somewhere to run? Yeah. If somebody has my presentation, that would be really good. I sent it to Raja, so I was hoping it would be. If you just bear with us a few moments, ladies and gents. I can't see because of the light. Yeah. Probably, yes. Some of the concepts are better with the pictures. I'm just hopeful they've... I'm not talking hydrogen in this because I wanted to focus on other useful market, well, interesting market sectors that were different. So I'm glad you touched on hydrogen. That was good. The pilot plant will be in Israel, yes. Yeah. I'll send you, I've got some presentation slides. No, that's right.
Do you have another copy by any chance?
Do I have it?
By any chance?
My presentation? It's on my computer.
Can I get it for you?
Yeah, I'll come down and get it. We had a small technical... Does this not work now?
Sorry for this delay. Mr. Jindal, there are a couple of questions. Maybe till the time that happens, we can address them.
Hi, Abhyuday. Good morning. Always nice to interact with you. Just I want to know, sir, we have been reading some reports that the production of stainless steel in India is going to almost grow at a double, almost a 9% CAGR rate in the next 5 to 6 years. So where do you see these capacities coming in? Are there going to be brownfield expansions or greenfield expansions? And secondly, do you see the manufacturing landscape changing in India for SS? Do you see some people moving towards nickel pig iron or other raw materials than scrap? What's your vision?
Hello, thank you. Thank you for your question. So basically, it's going to be a mix of both. You know, there is enough inherent capacity already there in our country, and most of the small scale, medium scale producers are actually operating at a 30 to 40% capacity utilization. So the way the industry is going to grow, and absolutely you're right, at 9 to 10%, we're expecting stainless steel to grow in India. And with that, looking at that scenario, it's going to be a mix of both brownfield, greenfield. All the producers, if there is some protection and there is some support that we do get from our government, then definitely all these underutilized capacities will ramp up. So that immediately will add into the stainless steel output. Plus, along with that, because we see tremendous growth coming into railways, automotive industry, ABC sector, then there will have to be greenfield expansion also. And in terms of your second question for nickel pig iron, so our country does not have any nickel in it. So for going for nickel pig iron production in India will not be viable. And again, with the concern of CBAM that Marcus very rightly spoke about, and the focus for stainless steel industry has to be scope 3, because already all of us are almost 85 to 90% scrap users anyway. The focus has to be on ferroalloys, on scope 3. So when that comes into play, then NPI might not be the most promising technology to go for, even though it is the most lucrative in terms of costing. That is definitely, it is there, but it totally depends now where your market you're going to supply to. If your focus is going to be more domestic, more, let's say, Southeast Asia, then NPI is not a bad opportunity, a bad area, technology to jump into. But if Europe, US is going to be the focus, where the growth is there, where the demand is definitely very strong also, then I would still say working on scrap route, working on green hydrogen, working on newer technologies, renewable power would be a better bet.
We go. Somebody's moved the... Hello. Can you hear me okay now? Everything all right and clear? Okay, let me just check that this works. It does? It seems to do. How do I go back? Oh gosh, I've got this the wrong way. Right, back to the start. I know how to work this now. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Tim Collins and I'm the Secretary General of World Stainless. We're based in Brussels in Belgium. I'm originally of UK origin, as I think was described earlier. So I grew up in the industrial city of Sheffield, which is obviously rather famous or well known for stainless steels. But that's another story. Anyway, in my present capacity, I'm going to talk for a few minutes about solid and sustainability-centered market development approaches for stainless steels, because I think we need to face the market opportunities differently than perhaps what we have done in the past. So it's a pleasure to be talking to you guys this morning, and if you have any questions at the end, come and see me at an appropriate point in the whole day or over the next few days. I'm around for all 3 days. So this morning, I'm going to talk about 4 things, really. I'm going to talk about stainless steel production levels just to set the scene. I'm then going to move on and talk about opportunities for stainless steels. I'm going to focus on 2 specific sectors, because in the time allowed, you can't do everything. I'm going to talk about then how to market stainless steels from a different standpoint, and then I'll summarize what I've said at the end. Okay, so let's move on. If this thing works. So we'll start with stainless steel production levels. It's nice to be in widescreen, I have to say. This is quite an unusual moment for me. So this is the history from 1950 up to last year. of stainless steel production levels. I've smoothed a little bit of this chart out so it doesn't look so crazy, but the general trend is positive and one of growth. And since about 1980, the growth has been at a level of around 5% year on year. Just excuse me a second.
I'm very sorry, I have to rudely interrupt you. The minister is online.
Okay, so we have to pause this, but that's okay. We can pick that up in a moment.
More time. You get bonus time for that. Thank you. Sorry for bearing with us. Tim, please bear with me for a couple of minutes. I think they're having some connectivity issues. Tim, I, Tim, I think we should continue with your presentation. The technical challenges are still continuing. And I promise I won't interrupt you this time. Yes, we're going back to you.
So do I need that microphone? Here's your microphone. Okay, because I'm not sure that one worked. Okay, no?
It works. Let me take this one away.
Take that one away. It does work. Perfect. So, ladies and gents, we're back to me because of other delays. We'd only just got into the presentation, so I don't think it will take you long to get back up to speed, so to speak. So, let's see if we can move this forward. Is it playing with me? Here we go. Very slow, or I'm not pointing this in the right place. Somewhere out there. I had more success pointing it towards the floor. Oh, I think we're back with the minister. Do you want me to pause?
ऊपर रखो टेबल में रखो पेपर कुछ लाए निकाल लाए कौन सी लिख दिया 2 मिनट क्या था मैं पहले बोला था कि सब पहले उसको कर दें हेलो आवाज आ रही ना चलिए हेलो हेलो इंडियन एक्सपो सेंटर एंड अच्छा स्टील विकास संघ ISSDA के इस कार्यक्रम में पहले तो मैं सभी हमारे जितने भी प्रतिनिधि हैं हमारे इस एसोसिएशन के संघ के पदाधिकारी हैं उनको बहुत शुभकामनाएं देता हूं बधाई देता हूं और ये पहले मेडन प्रदर्शनी एवं सम्मेलन के उस उद्घाटन सत्र के अवसर पर विशेष तौर से मैं इस बहुत ऐसे एक काम के लिए शुभकामनाएं आप सभी को और प्रतिनिधियों को आप सब लोगों ने परिश्रम करके स्टेनलेस स्टील का ये जो कार्यक्रम आयोजित किया है विशेष तौर से इसे लोकसभा सत्र के कारण है मेरी व्यस्तता है मैं प्रत्यक्ष रूप से आप तक पहुंचने में थोड़ा मुझे समय की व्यस्तता के कारण मैं असमर्थ हूं परंतु इससे ऑनलाइन वीडियो के माध्यम से आपसे मैं बातचीत कर रहा हूं और मैं चाहूंगा कि ये सब परिस्थितियां जो भी है उसको ध्यान में रखते हुए आज जिन विषयों पे हम चर्चा कर रहे हैं तो इसको लेकर के जैसा कि हम अनुभव कर रहे हैं कि आपके साथ फिर कभी इस पूरे तकनीक के बारे में बातचीत करेंगे स्टेनलेस स्टील के बारे में मैं तो भारतीय स्टेनलेस स्टील उद्योग से जुड़े सभी निर्माताओं को इस प्रक्रिया में शामिल हर एक व्यक्ति को बधाई देना चाहता हूं आज भारत जो कि पूरे विश्व में स्टेनलेस स्टील का एक तीसरा सबसे बड़ा उत्पादक है और जिस मेहनत और उद्यम के साथ हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं हमें जल्दी ही दूसरे स्थान को प्राप्त करने में सफलता प्राप्त होगी यही मैं अपेक्षा करता हूं मैं ISSDA और इसके सदस्यों को बधाई देना चाहूंगा क्योंकि उनके सतत इस प्रयासों से न केवल भारतीय स्टेनलेस स्टील की साख वैश्विक स्तर पर स्थापित की गई है, बल्कि घरेलू बाजार में भी स्टेनलेस स्टील के प्रचार प्रसार से इसकी खपत इतनी बढ़ा दी है कि आज भारत विश्व का दूसरा सबसे बड़ा स्टेनलेस स्टील खपत वाला देश बन गया है। मैं लगभग 2-3 दशक पहले स्टेनलेस स्टील मुख्य रूप से हमारे किचन वेयर से लेकर के बर्तनों और सिक्के के हमारे सेगमेंट्स में जो प्रयोग किया जाता था, लेकिन पिछले 2 दशक से स्टेनलेस स्टील ने दूसरे क्षेत्रों में गहरे रूप से प्रवेश किया है। जैसे रेलवे, मेट्रो रेलवे के डब्बे, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में लगने वाले स्टेनलेस स्टील, इंजीनियरिंग उद्योग, तेल और गैस इस्पात निर्माण, डेयरी और खाद्य पदार्थ के क्षेत्र में स्टेनलेस स्टील का उपयोग जितना बढ़ा है, मुझे लगता है कि इसके लिए ISSDA ने पिछले कई वर्षों से स्टेनलेस स्टील को बाजार विकास में महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाई है। स्टेनलेस स्टील शल्य चिकित्सा उपकरणों या जो प्रतिदिन इस्तेमाल में आने वाले हमारे जो खाने के जो बर्तन हैं, उसके लिए पसंदीदा सामग्री है, क्योंकि यह न केवल स्थायी बल्कि सबसे स्वच्छ और आसानी से साफ हो जाने वाला है। इसके अलावा यह कम रखरखाव और लंबे जीवन तक इसे इस्तेमाल करने का या आने का जो भी सबसे अच्छा एक विकल्प है। आज चमचमाती मेट्रो कोच राष्ट्र भर में स्टेनलेस स्टील से बने हैं। स्टेनलेस स्टील स्टेशन के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के विकास और अन्य संबंधित वस्तुओं में महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाता है। स्टेनलेस स्टील 100% पुनर्चक्रणीय होता है और ये अपने आप में एक प्रकार का ऐसा है जिनके लिए जब हम किसी सामान को पुनः उसका उपकरण और खासतौर से इसका साइक्लिंग के रूप में उपयोग करते हैं, जहां जहां पर जो कच्चा माल है वहां से लेकर के जो कंप्लीट बना हुआ जो प्रोडक्ट है और साथ साथ जो रिसाइकलिंग की भी व्यवस्था इसके अंदर की गई है, तो मुझे लगता है इसको कहीं ना कहीं आज दुनिया में सबसे ज्यादा महत्वपूर्ण है। इससे यह पर्यावरण से भी हिम्मत हो जाता है। इसके अलावा यह जंग के नुकसान जो खास तौर से बर्तनों में जो जंग लगता है उससे एक प्रकार का लाभ है। मुझे बताया गया है कि भारत में जंग लगने के कारण प्रतिवर्ष से लगभग 5 से 7 GDP हो जाता है और इसकी अनुमानित वार्षिक मात्रा 100 अरब डॉलर से अधिक है। भारतीय स्टेनलेस स्टील उद्योग ने पिछले कुछ वर्षों में तेजी से वृद्धि की है और सरकार के विकास कार्यों की गति, जिसमें इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर विशेष तौर से रेलवे और कुशल जल प्रबंधन के कारण आने वाले समय में स्टेनलेस स्टील और तेज गति से अपनी भूमिका निभाएगा। उपभोग के मामूली हमारे हिस्सों में भारत विश्व में स्टेनलेस स्टील का ये जो दूसरा सबसे बड़ा उपभोक्ता है, जिससे लगभग 4 मिलियन टन स्टेनलेस स्टील का उपयोग होता है। किंतु हमारा आज प्रति व्यक्ति जो उपभोग वर्तमान में 2.8 डिग्री किलोग्राम है, तो आज पूरे दुनिया के औसत 6 किलोग्राम के खिलाफ है। इसलिए हमारे सामने एक विशाल संभावनाएं हैं। मुझे यह याद किया गया है कि भारतीय स्टेनलेस स्टील उद्योग के साथ विशेष चुनौतियां भी जुड़ी हुई है। इससे कच्चे माल का आयात पर निर्भर होता है और साथ ही भारी मात्रा में बनाए गए उत्पाद का आयात द्वारा हमारे इस लघु उद्योग के उत्पादन में कमी आना भी शामिल है। मध्यम एवं लघु उद्यम 1.3 भारत के कुल उत्पादन में योगदान देने वाला है। भारतीय स्टेनलेस स्टील उद्योग के लिए आज राष्ट्रीय स्टेनलेस स्टील नीति के लिए ISFDA का ये प्रचार प्रसार कर रहा है, क्योंकि यह उद्योग कार्बन स्टील की तुलना में विशेष समस्याओं से भरा हुआ है। कार्बन स्टील के विपरीत स्टेनलेस स्टील उत्पादन के लिए कच्चा और फेरोअलाइट का उपयोग किया जाता है, जिसके लिए हम अधिकांशतः आयात पर आधारित हैं। इसके अलावा इसके बहुमूल्य उपकरण अधिकांशतः आयातित होते हैं, क्योंकि भारत में ये कच्चा माल उपलब्ध नहीं है और इसलिए इसे एक अलग राष्ट्रीय स्टेनलेस स्टील नीति के लिए अनुरोध किया गया है। मैं बताना चाहता हूं कि इसके लिए अभी सरकार ने जब हमने LI स्कीम लेकर के आए थे उस समय इस पे काफी चर्चा हुई और आज धीरे धीरे स्टेनलेस स्टील का जो प्रभाव और जितना नीचे तक पहुंचा है तो इसका उपयोग यही है। और मुझे कहते हुए प्रसन्नता है कि जब इसके बारे में हम विचार करते हैं तो स्वाभाविक तौर से अधिकांश ऐसे क्षेत्र और भारत के जो उन क्षेत्रों में इसका प्रभाव जितना उपयोगी हो सकता है, लोग जिस आधार पर उसकी डिमांड कर रहे हैं, हमारे पास से डिमांड की पूर्ति करने में कई बार कठिनाइयां होती हैं। मुझे यह ज्ञात किया गया है कि वाणिज्य मंत्रालय ने इस संबंध में EPC के माध्यम से एक हमारे RBSM के समर्थन के लिए सहायता दी है और 4 अगस्त 23 को आज जो प्रस्तावित है RBSM के लिए लैटिन अमेरिका से 18 जो खरीदार आने की जो सूचना भी दी गई है, तो मुझे ये भी कहते हुए प्रसन्नता है कि मैं सभी ऐसे प्रतिभागियों से इस अवसर का लाभ उठाने का आग्रह करता हूं और उन्हें इन देशों में अपने बाजार का विस्तार करने के लिए भी प्रोत्साहित करता हूं। मुझे यह भी बताया गया है कि इस 3 दिन के प्रयोजन में रेलवे, बर्तन निर्माण, जल, तेल और गैस, रसायन और पेट्रोकेमिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर आदि जैसे विभिन्न अंत्य उपयोग क्षेत्रों पर ध्यान केंद्रित हमारे पैनल चर्चा होगी, जहां पर आपूर्ति, मांग और अनुसंधान तरफ से स्टेनलेस स्टील की जो विकास में महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दे पर चर्चा होगी। मैं कहना चाहता हूं कि जब पैनल डिस्कशन हो, उस पैनल डिस्कशन के अंदर इन सारे विषयों को समाहित करते हुए उसके जो सकारात्मक सुझाव या पक्ष है उनको जरूर आप मुझे बताएंगे, तो मैं जरूर मंत्रालय की ओर से ये कहूंगा और आप सबको विश्वास इस बात के लिए दिलाना चाहता हूं कि इस प्रक्रिया में आप सब सहभागी बनेंगे और सरकार को हम एक सुझाव दे पाएंगे। और इसलिए मैं आप सबसे आग्रह करता हूं कि आपके जो महत्वपूर्ण सुझाव होंगे इस पैनल डिस्कशन में, ऐसे सुझावों को आप उसको सम्मिलीकरण करके आप उस तक जरूर भेजें ताकि हम मंत्रालय से बातचीत कर सकें। ये अपेक्षा आप सब मित्रों से करता हूं। मुझे यह भी ज्ञात हुआ है कि पहली बार एक क्लोज डोर CEO राउंड टेबल आयोजित किया गया है, जिसका अध्यक्षता हमारे मंत्रालय से सचिव इस्पात के द्वारा की जाएगी, जिसमें उद्योग धर्मी विभिन्न नीति संबंधी मुद्दे उठाएंगे जो वर्तमान में स्टेनलेस स्टील उद्योग के विकास के लिए बाधा बने हुए हैं। मैं ISSDA से अनुरोध करूंगा कि उन्हें मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ द स्टील को एक विस्तृत रिपोर्ट जमा करें, जिसमें मुद्दे और समझौते के बाद सुझाए गए जो समाधान हाइलाइट्स किए जाएंगे, मैं आईएएस एसडी और उसके सदस्यों को इस कार्यक्रम के लिए, उनकी सफलता के लिए मैं बहुत शुभकामनाएं देता हूं, बधाई देता हूं और बल एक वैश्विक मंच पर स्टेनलेस स्टील उद्योग और इसके पूरी मूल श्रृंखला के लिए एक सिग्नेचर इवेंट बना दिया जाएगा। मैं ISSE 2023 को मैं इसकी सफलता की कामना करता हूं और मित्रों, मैं आप सबको एक बार पुनः बहुत बहुत इस इवेंट्स के लिए बधाई देता हूं और सारे जितने हमारे पदाधिकारी हैं सबको इस काम के लिए, हमारे इस आयोजन की सफलता के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूं। आप सबको शुभकामनाएं। नमस्कार।
प्रणाम मंत्री महोदय, मेरा नाम सुखजिंदर है और मैं ISDA और ISSE की ऑर्गेनाइजिंग टीम की तरफ से तहे दिल से आपका आभार प्रकट करता हूं। आज आपने हमसे बात की, हमारा हौसला बढ़ाया। जैसा आपने आदेश किया, हम इस इवेंट के बाद एक अच्छी सी रिपोर्ट बना के आपके ऑफिस में प्रेजेंट करेंगे। एक बार फिर आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। आज आप दिल्ली में नहीं थे, फिर भी आपने टाइम निकाला हमारे लिए। इससे बहुत हौसला अफजाई होगी इंडस्ट्री की। थैंक यू, आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया।
चलिए, धन्यवाद।
Tim, now you go uninterrupted. But I guess now you're rested and recuperated, so more energy.
I got a coffee. Okay, the mic works. We're back on the right slide. I think this is third time lucky. So, third time lucky. We should be okay. So let's hope I can move this thing forward now. Not sure where I pointed still. It has moved. Right. Whoa. Oh, the wrong way. Nice. Let's start. Whoop. So, if you remember from the first time, we're talking about 4 things. And then I'll summarize at the end within those 4 things. So, we started by looking at, whoa, this is a bit of interesting sort of slide progression, and I wasn't doing anything then. But now, gosh, it's going the wrong way. One more back, please. Perfect. Okay. Are we good? So, not only third time lucky, but a presentation that has a life of its own. But we'll get there. So, you can see over quite a number of years, 72 years, how the growth in stainless steel production at a global level has changed. And that's impressive and interesting. But what we need to remember is that at a global level, even at over 50 million tons a year of new melting shop production, that's still only about 3% of the total steels produced around our world. So we're a small player, and we shouldn't forget that. But we do need to change that. Whoa, that was too many slides. Let's move forward 1. So if we look at the Indian melt shop production, and just over more the short term, we can see how that has grown to this figure of around 4 million tons that was talked about earlier. What's interesting in this, and interesting certainly from where I'm coming from here, is the grade mix. You've got a hugely solid base around 3 groups, the 200 series austenitic, the 300 series austenitic, and the ferritic group. And that's really important, particularly for some of the stuff I'm going to talk about next. But also, within that, there's an opportunity. There is another group series, a sort of catch-all for all other types of stainless that's very small for India currently, And I think this is where an opportunity sits. But let's move forward and look at some opportunities. And here's some classic uses of stainless steels. Interesting thing, I know you guys in India have been using for many, many years stainless steel food containers. We now have widely available, I'm not sure if these are available in India, but microwave safe stainless steel food containers. I have 3 at home and they're brilliant. You pop them in the microwave, there's no sparking, your food comes out perfectly warmed or cooked. Easy, and you don't have to use plastic. I'm going to talk about that a bit more in a little while. Microwave safe stainless steel food containers, huge opportunity. So let's try and move this thing forward. Hey ho. So what I'm going to talk about today are 2 end-use sectors, building and infrastructure, and I'm talking really about the components of structures, not things that Marcus touched on earlier, which are more about the architectural features, I think, that go on. And at the minute, about half the total global steel production is consumed in building and infrastructure, but less than 1% of that is stainless in those structural parts. And that's a huge opportunity. And if you doubled the current stainless usage in those structural parts, including reinforcement, that's another 450,000 tons per year. And that's just doubling from less than 1%. So a huge opportunity. Now what's interesting here, and this is where I see an opportunity for you guys in India, duplex stainless steels are a game changer in this sector. If you replace just about 10% of your reinforcement with stainless, so it's only a marginal cost increase, you not only prevent corrosion to the structure, you actually reduce the amount of concrete you need at the same time by some 25%. So huge benefit here, and it's something I believe for the industry we need to promote and promote well. My box got a little out of sorts there. It was all the words were in the little blue box. The other thing that I want to talk about is single-use or reusable plastics. And currently there are 7 billion single-use plastic containers used in the world today, every year. And these things are very cheap, about 3.5% of the cost of a stainless equivalent. So it's not surprising people use them and buy them. They are so, so cheap. But the legacy of these things is the disposal costs. An average of $1,300 per ton for the disposal costs. And that's because only 9% of plastics are recycled currently. And that's not because the plastics industry can't recycle. They can. The supply chain doesn't work. So if you switch to a stainless container, you only have to use it 5 times. From a life cycle perspective, you're at break even. That's a really important statistic. Oh, we've moved forward. I didn't intend that, but I think that is the next slide. So the first bit of this, I'll talk about building and infrastructure. This is a real-life example from a UK urban viaduct that was built in the 1970s just with carbon steel reinforcement. So that's the red line on this chart. The cost of this viaduct, it was relatively small. It was about 30 million euros when it was built, a little under. The cost after just 17 years had gone up to 80 million euros because of all the structural failures that were occurring due to corrosion of the reinforcement. If 10% stainless, duplex stainless, had been used, the blue line represents what the cost would have been. There would have been maintenance costs. You don't avoid them, but the difference is staggering. And that's just 17 years. So this is a message we have to get across to the building and infrastructure guys. Just that small use of stainless reinforcement in critical parts saves you a whole world of pain and cost. Now, this is how it works when you look at reinforcement. So if you take the picture on the left here, the black bit is the standard carbon steel rebar, and you've got CO2, you've got chloride ions, you've got sulfate ions, you've got water, all that diffuse into the concrete. But what's important is the carbon dioxide changes the concrete from being an alkalinic structure to an acidic structure. That's what's going on. And as that progresses, the chloride ions that are present then get to the reinforcement, and by the time you got to the right-hand side, the reinforcement has rusted, it expands because rust is bigger than the substrate material, the concrete cracks, and the process develops. You get the picture. So people will say, hey, but we can get galvanized reinforcement, we can get coated reinforcement. They fail. They get damaged in handling, they crack, all sorts of things go wrong. So ultimately, this happens. And this is the surface layers we're talking about. We're not deep into the concrete, and we don't need stainless deep in the concrete. The surface layers are where you make the impact and save the cost. It's an easy solution, but you just need people to see this. So let's move on. So now we're going to talk about food containers, because I think I only had 15 minutes, so I'm trying to cram a lot in here. So here on this chart, this is uses of a food container, goes up to about 30 uses, so not that many uses. The red line is the cost, total cost of single-use plastic. So very cheap at the left-hand side of this chart, very expensive after 30 uses, because you're using a new container every time. The blue line towards the bottom is what I call a reusable plastic container. So you're using it about 5 or 6 times. The cost goes up much slower. And then the dark line is stainless. It's more expensive, 28 times more expensive. But the cost doesn't change because you keep reusing it. And there are people now that I call circularity partners doing this sort of thing with stainless for the takeaway food industry in Korea, in Canada, in the USA already. So that we do away completely with plastic food containers. And at World Stainless, we've been running tests on stainless steel food and drinks containers. We've got to more than 1,000 uses, and the things haven't looked poor or damaged or failed anything. They just keep going. So we can say safely, 1,000 reuses, no problem. We don't know beyond that. We think it will be a lot more, but we haven't proved it yet. And the environmental impact is great, just from doing this shift. So we've got to convince people this is important. Now, how do we do this? And here's a reflection. Back in 1955, Life magazine showed the dawn of the throwaway society, and particular parts of the world have embraced that and gone mad. Arguably, in a lot of parts of the world now, 80% of street litter is to do with throwaway food containers. Horrible statistic. Compare that with the Chrysler building, built in 1930. It's been cleaned 3 times. It's 316L stainless steel clad. Looks perfect. If that doesn't support the argument for stainless, I'm not sure what does. But if we move on, another slide. So I'd like to try and look at the marketing of stainless steels with this Boston box. And what I'm going to compare here is life cycle costs on the left-hand side, going from low to high, and material resilience along the bottom, from poor on the left-hand side to excellent on the right-hand side. And there are 4 conditions here. Traditional perceptions. You don't want to pay a lot for things, but you don't get a great performance. Bottom left-hand side. Above that, what I call misunderstanding. People who think life cycle costs are too high and you don't get an improvement in material performance. And for some materials that's true, but not for all. What I call suboptimal thinking, top right, that's where you're going to pay a lot of money to get excellent performance. And you don't always need to do that. You just have to think differently. And then the optimal outcome are bottom right. So let's try and populate this now. If whoever's moving the slides on kindly, because it isn't me. So, single-use plastic products in that top left-hand corner, I would say rubbish. We don't want those. They're not good for the environment. Food diffuses into the plastic, plastic diffuses into the food. Humans ingest 18 kilograms of microplastics in their lifetime, and we don't know what that does to our health. Next, short-use plastics. They're up there, but not as bad. If we move on again, long-use plastics, still up there, but moving in the right direction. We're moving towards a better position. So I'm not anti-plastic, I just think plastic should be used for the right application. Then we get traditional metal and alloy products. They're pretty good overall, but have some weaknesses. Then composite materials, and this is where it gets interesting. This notion of 10% stainless reinforcement in a structure, that's a composite material idea. So that gives you low cost and good material resilience. And then right on the end, last bubble on this, if somebody moves it forward again, we have stainless steels, of course we do. And nickel alloys will be in there too. So this is one of my arguments for how we should change how we market stainless steels. It's stainless steels in their own right, things that are made solely out of stainless steels, and it's stainless steels as a composite element, a product, a structure, whatever. Can we move forward one more? So, this is what I call my holy trinity of marketing stainless steels. 3 things: life cycle costs, life cycle emissions, which I'll talk about in a minute, and key attributes. And if you focus on these 3 elements, you have a compelling piece of material sustainability guidance. And I mean compelling. So if we move forward again. So this is a real-life example. This is from the city of Melbourne in Australia, who have switched completely to stainless steel street furniture. This is a life cycle emissions example. Not many people are doing life cycle emissions thinking. Over 30 years for some of their street furniture. And what you've got here, left-hand bar, galvanized carbon steel. Then you've got 304 stainless steel, moving to the right, 2304 lean duplex stainless steel, and then high-density polyethylene right-hand bar. And this is tons of CO2 per bin installed over 30 years. And the staggering differences are 2. 1, stainless stands out. Doesn't matter whether you use 304 or lean duplex. They stand out as really low emissions. But the high components of the emissions come in the maintenance and replacement categories, the bright red and the grey boxes. So if you choose materials that are truly resilient, your life cycle emissions fall. And the production emissions that a lot of people get excited about are not the issue. It's the things that go wrong. So this is a way to change your thinking. So understanding what goes wrong allows you to market materials for applications in the best way. And there were 2 major issues here that not quite got on the slide, they're right at the bottom. But one was degradation of the materials, which I talked about for less resilient materials. The other things are things you don't always expect. In this case, for street furniture, it was contractors, people coming into the area to do work. They damaged things. And once you put in a more resilient material, the damage falls dramatically. So you've got to be aware of the operating environment and what's happening. So let's move on, please. So, to sum all this stuff up, stainless steels have some amazing attributes, and we don't tell enough people. People's knowledge of stainless steels is generally pretty weak. We're so much more than corrosion resistance. So much more. Short-term thinking still dominates many people's beliefs for material choices. And even within the same organization, what I call organizational decoupling is prevalent. I'll illustrate it with a little example. A while ago, I went to a food processing factory in the UK. They had a big tank made out of stainless steel that every few months was corroding for reasons they didn't understand. And they said, "Can you help?" So I went along and said, "Yep." So I had a look at this slurry that they had in, which was high in chlorides. And they were using 304 stainless for this tank. Easy problem to solve. It was pitting corrosion. I said, "You need a 316 variant." And they said, "Hey, we only run the plant. We don't buy the materials." So I said, "Hey, what do you mean you don't buy them?" "Well, that's procurement's job." "Okay, can we talk to them?" "Yep." So I went across, met the procurement people. "Yeah, well, we buy 304 because it's the cheapest, and we have a bonus that's earned on the lowest costs we spend." So I said, you guys earn a bonus for these guys to spend more money on running the plant or maintaining it. And they said, yeah. I just said, you're mad. You're absolutely mad. This was in the same organization. This is the craziness of things that happen. And once you remove those organizational decoupled parts, things progress. So you've got to deal with the organization at the same time who are using your products. And stainless steels will solve your material degradation problems. And with the ongoing effects of climate change, we need to promote stainless in this manner. We need to get this message across. So promoting these three things together, this holy trinity, life cycle costs, life cycle emissions, key attributes, is a game changer. It will unlock marketing barriers. It will unlock or demist people's heads. Because most of the problems sit in heads. Winning hearts and minds is what's most important. So, I think that brings me to the end of my session. I hope that has been a little provocative, given people some different ways to think about things. In a nutshell, I couldn't cover everything in the stainless world, but there's some big market opportunities, and I think collectively we should go for them. So, I think that's my last slide. There's just a sort of one more that just says thank you very much, I think.
I think with a couple of pauses and delays and reschedulings, we're about half an hour late, but still half an hour for lunch. I'd hand over the dais to Mr. Abhyuday Jindal to bring in a perspective around the Indian industry and how he sees the march into the next couple of years. Over to you.
Thank you. Members on the dais, members of the government, industry, and friends. A very good afternoon. I think we've had a couple of very good presentations from both Marcus and Tim. Gives us a lot of information, a lot of things to contemplate, think about, and it just gives me more confidence that there is so much still left to do in the stainless steel industry. So thank you for those presentations. A very good afternoon to everyone present here. It is my privilege to address this esteemed gathering that is set to chart the roadmap for the stainless steel industry. We are all aware of the immense potential of the stainless steel industry to contribute to nation building. And with various forms of government initiatives and upbeat investor confidence, our industry is finally looking up. In the early 90s, stainless steel demand for flat products in India was only about 2.5 lakh tons, of which 85% was used in the utensil sector. From then to now, an annual consumption of over 32 lakh tons, of which around 40% is used in the utensil sector. India has progressed a long way in building self-reliance for stainless steel. Today, Indian stainless steel industry stands proud as the third largest producer and the second largest consumer of the metal. And we need to continue our efforts to further strengthen our position. The purpose of any industry is to solve pertinent problems of society, and our industry is here to solve a crucial one, that of powering the rapid development of the world with sustainable solutions. With its complete recyclability, inherent hygiene, corrosion resistance, and low maintenance requirements, stainless steel is aptly positioned to empower global development sustainably and become the metal of choice for crafting a greener tomorrow. It's the safer choice for public utilities, infrastructure, and mobility solutions, as was evident during the recent train crash in Odisha. Given the government's commitment to use stainless steel in LHB coaches, we saw that more lives could be saved in these SS coaches today compared to any such deadly incidents in the past. What better proof than this to show that stainless steel's higher impact and temperature resistance makes it the best suited material for such applications. We're all aware that government's thrust on infrastructure development in the country will be a major factor that would not only drive demand in the manufacturing sector, but also give our entire economy a much-needed boost. The government's vision for increase in indigenous manufacturing and revamp of railway infrastructure, as well as wagon and coaches, all bode well for our industry. For domestic manufacturers, underutilization of capacities, while currently a challenge, is also an opportunity for the future, since we can scale up production to meet increased demand without significant investments. We also need to invest in R&D and innovation and adopt the latest technologies that will help scale up production quantity as well as the quality. I would also like to assure all our MSME partners that a stainless steel boom is expected in the near future, and I invite all of you to be part of this growth. As the Honorable PM recently mentioned that India is set to be the third largest economy in the world in the next few years, so our GDP will show substantial growth. And when that happens, the stainless steel will grow at even a faster pace than the GDP. To capitalize on these opportunities, we need to urgently address all our weaknesses and threats. The threats that our industry is facing are majorly external, in the form of price fluctuations of key raw materials that impact profitability and economic volatility that affects stainless steel demand. The Stainless Steel Vision of 2047, which was released last year, is based on extensive research done by CRISIL and supported by ISDA. It encapsulates the challenges I just spoke about and will serve as our trusted advisor on specific ways in which we can achieve these objectives. But first, a very important step we need to take to address this issue is of fragmentation in our industry. It is imperative that all of us unite in our efforts to address these issues. That is why forums such as ISSC are important, so that we can all come together with our different perspectives, share our learnings, and define the way ahead for the entire industry. And sustainability needs to be a key tenet on which we form our future plans. Given its potential to be infinitely recycled and lowest emissions during its long life cycle, stainless steel is already the most appropriate metal for sustainable development. It doesn't require frequent maintenance, thereby reducing the load on the environment as well as the government's resources. And not just that, it nearly doubles the life of infra compared to other materials, as rightly showed by Tim in his presentation earlier. I can think of many examples to substantiate this claim, but let's just consider this one: the collapse of the footover bridge in Andheri in Mumbai a few years back. After this mishap, when the government wanted a long-lasting and safer solution, we worked with RDSO to come up with the offerings for this new segment. This led to the foray of stainless steel into footover bridges, and now we have these SSFOBs coming up from Naupada and Sirakakulam in Andhra Pradesh to Bhayandar in Mumbai. And I must say that this is only the beginning. Our country has a vast coastline and such harsh environments for our infrastructure. What better material than stainless steel to withstand such adversities? With work progressing on Har Ghar Nal Jal Yojana, I urge the decision makers to take facts into consideration while choosing the best material for new pipelines. And for all our future projects, must take life cycle costing and life cycle emissions into account for a truly sustainable approach, and thereby empowering the country to reach net zero by 2070. At JSL, we are committed to reach net zero by 2050, and one of the ways to ensure this is to power all future growth through renewable sources of energy only. Be it from the form of floating or rooftop solar plants in our premises to our hybrid RE project we have signed with Renew Power, or even our plans for green hydrogen production. We are making concentrated efforts to reach this goal as soon as possible. On the policy front, I applaud the Steel Ministry's vision to make India completely Atmanirbhar for our value-added products in stainless steel and other metals. The stainless steel policy, which is still a work in progress, is targeting a 5x jump in capacity and is an appreciable and much needed move to help the domestic stainless steel industry grow. We also need to fight the prevalence of subsidized and substandard imports through relevant policy interventions. In the short run, it may seem imported stainless steel, which is basically dumped material from China and other such countries, is cheaper. But the price we pay is not in terms of money, it is in terms of quality of the material that is going into our nation building, the cost competitiveness of our domestic industry, and ultimately weakening of the Make in India vision. The industry looks forward to the government's finalization of this much-awaited policy intervention. As the leading manufacturer in the sector, we are keenly focused on adopting technology across our value chain and are eager to take our partners along this path to progress. I want to once again assure all our MSME partners that Jindal Stainless is here for you, to provide you and support you all for whatever you need in this journey. We are also planning extensive infrastructure development in Odisha in the form of a Jindal Stainless Park, which will be a 271-acre greenfield park serving over 100 downstream MSME industries. We have also curated an initiative called the Stainless Academy to advocate and popularize the usage of and the benefits of stainless steel under 4 verticals, right from academia and future decision makers up to fabricators and other stakeholders, and even end customers. We are working on every front to ensure category recognition and skill development to increase usage of stainless steel. And this activity will not only help our company, but will help the entire stainless steel industry. I'm happy to share that on a yearly basis, our research has shown increasing comfort among fabricators to adopt stainless steel. This not only helps them earn better, it is also helping them showcase their art and creativity in stainless steel through the Jindal Stainless Solution page on Facebook. It is really heartening to see the kind of pride they have in working with stainless steel now, and this is just the beginning of our efforts as a company and even as an industry. In the end, I want to reiterate that it is up to all of us sitting here to make India the manufacturing hub it deserves to be. I'm excitedly looking forward to the various roundtables and panel discussions lined up in this expo. I'm sure that these deliberations will go a long way in cementing the vision of the industry in the upcoming decades and more. I conclude by thanking ISDA and all of you present here from the government, the industry, and our important stakeholders for this collaborative initiative. Jai Hind, thank you.
Thank you, Abhyuday. I'll request Rajamani Krishnamurthy now to present a vote of thanks and also hand over a small souvenir to the 3 panelists here. Again, reminding them that 3rd of August, they were here in Greater Noida with us.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It was the first maiden event of ISDA, and one of the focus areas was to bring the entire value chain of stainless steel industry under one platform, forgetting what Abhyuday said, forgetting all the, you may have competition among your company, that is healthy. But when you come on a platform like this, you should stand united. Then only, you will start dictating the world the way China is doing it. So this is my request from the ISDA platform, that please come to ISDA, and we are in ISDA, we are ready to help and extend all support. And you would have seen what Secretary had said today, that there was not any application from the stainless steel for the PLI 1. And when we had a discussion with the minister, and we said that the eligibility criteria that has been provided in the PLI 1 is not enough for the stainless steel industry. And minister said that please recommend what you want for the stainless industry, and I will ensure that those eligibility criteria are included in the PLI 2 scheme. So we have sent a communication to all our members in this regard. So we look forward to your inputs, that where you want to engage and access the PLI 2 scheme, so that you can give it to us, your inputs, we can forward it to the ministry. And now I thank, propose a vote of thanks to all the people, who have been part of this particular initiative, all our ministry partners, which is there on the board. And without sponsors, an event of this magnitude cannot be expected and be successful. So I thank all my sponsors and members, and even the members who have not participated this time and who will be definitely participating in our future editions of this event. So definitely, we welcome them on board. And with all this, I look forward to your participation in all the roundtables, because the roundtables, what we have initiated is not to deliberate on issues, because issues will be there. If you have life, you will have problems. So we are focusing more positively on how to come across those issues and how to successfully increase the consumption of stainless steel in varied applications. So all the roundtables are focused only on that particular directive, where we wanted the supplier side and the demand side to come forward and tell them what exactly the supplier side should say, that what are they expected out of the demand side, demand side should say what are they expected out of the supplier side. And similarly, the supplier side should say that what are the things that needs to be incorporated to make the business in a much easier way. So this is what the roundtable is going to focus upon. And I want you to participate in full flow so that the stainless steel industry at the end of the day become a winner on this. Thank you. Jai Hind.
So I think that brings us to the close of the session with a small souvenir for the panelists here. Let's break for a lunch, and all of you who are joining us for the panel discussion on railways, we'll meet here at 2 o'clock.
One more thing. The proposed CEO's roundtable, which was supposed to happen immediately after the inaugural functions under the chairmanship of Secretary Steel, is going to happen at 4 o'clock. Secretary has agreed to address us virtually, and it will be exclusively for the stainless steel industry. So I would request you to stay back, and we have organized a boardroom here. So all the invited participants to be staying back so that we can put across our views and what we require from the ministry. Ministry is ready to support us. So let's take this advantage of getting a hearing from the ministry itself. Thank you.
I think one group picture and then a walk to the exhibition. Yes? Marcus, with the box open, does yours have dollars or euros? I said with the box open, does yours have dollars or euros? So many pictures. Yes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll look forward to see you after the break.